The message that would upend my family's summer plans arrived at 6:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. My cousin Peter's name popped up in the family group chat. Amazing news. Since Nathan's mountain cabin is just sitting empty, we're turning it into the family's summer home. Already planned everything. Moving up there next week. I sat in my downtown Seattle office, watching the cascade of messages that followed. The early morning sun hadn't yet hit the top floors of my tech company's building, but my family's entitlement was already in full shine. Perfect timing. My sister Amanda chimed in. The kids need a summer adventure. Nathan never uses that place anyway. My Aunt Susan added, it's about time someone put that property to good use. Nathan's always been too busy with his startup to appreciate what he has. I sipped my coffee, watching their messages flood the screen. They had no idea what my startup actually was, or what that cabin represented. To them, I was still the family underachiever. The guy who'd walked away from Dad's real estate business to play with computers. The cabin they were so eagerly claiming wasn't just some vacation home. It was the headquarters of Mountain Peak Security Systems, my company's most advanced testing facility. The empty cabin housed millions in prototype security technology and served as our primary development site for government contracts. But they didn't know that. They'd never bothered to ask what I actually did for a living. My phone buzzed again as Peter created a new group chat, Mountain Home Renovation Plans. He'd already added an interior designer and a contractor. Nathan never had good taste anyway. He wrote, wait till you see what we're planning. I pulled up the cabin's security feeds on my laptop. The exterior looked deliberately rustic, weathered wood and simple lines blending into the mountainside. Inside was a different story, state-of-the-art testing labs, advanced surveillance systems and prototype security measures that would make most military bases look primitive. Sir, my assistant Thomas knocked on my office door. The Defense Department representatives are here for the demonstration. I nodded, still watching my family chat. Tell them we'll do it at the cabin. Next week, I think it's time for an unscheduled security test. Thomas glanced at my phone. Your family's still planning to move in. They are. I smiled slightly. Should be interesting. The next week passed in a blur of messages. My family had gone all in on their plan. Peter had rented a moving truck. Amanda had withdrawn her kids from summer camp. Aunt Susan had already ordered new furniture. Not once did anyone actually ask my permission. They simply assumed that because I lived in Seattle, the cabin must be unused. Their messages were filled with plans to modernize the outdated security system and replace the ancient electrical setup. If they only knew that the outdated security system was worth more than their houses combined. I maintained my silence in the chat, watching as they planned their takeover in detail. The moving truck was scheduled for Tuesday. They'd hired local contractors to begin renovations on Wednesday. My aunt had even started a blog. Our mountain summer renovating a rustic cabin. On Monday night, I flew up to the cabin with Thomas. We spent the evening running final checks on the security systems and preparing for the next day's demonstration. Everything's ready, Thomas reported. The Defense Department team will arrive at 2 p.m. Your family should be here around noon. Based on their timeline. I nodded, checking the perimeter sensors. Perfect, let's give them a proper welcome. Tuesday morning dawned clear and bright. I watched through the security cameras as a moving truck, followed by 3 SUVs, wound their way up the mountain road. Peter was leading the convoy, with Amanda and Aunt Susan following behind. They pulled up to the cabin's gate at 11:47 a.m. The excitement on their faces was visible through the high-resolution cameras. It's even better than the photos. Amanda exclaimed as they piled out of their vehicles. Her kids immediately ran toward the front gate. Peter was already examining the exterior with a critical eye. That security system looks ancient. We'll replace it first thing. I watched on the monitors as they approached the gate. Peter pulled out his phone, presumably to call me for the entry code. I waited. Nathan, Peter's voice came through my phone. We're here. What's the gate code? Hello, Peter, I replied calmly. Why would I give you the gate code? What do you mean? We're moving in. Everyone's here with the moving truck. I never said you could move in. I pointed out, in fact, you never asked. But the cabin's just sitting empty. Aunt Susan chimed in, having joined the call. Is it? I pressed a button and the cabin's exterior transformed. Hidden panels slid away, revealing sleek security features. Advanced cameras emerged from concealed housings. The rustic facade rippled as military-grade defensive systems activated. Through the security feeds, I watched their jaws drop. What is this? Amanda stammered. This, I replied, is the headquarters of Mountain Peak Security Systems. That startup you've been mocking. We develop advanced security technology for government and private sector clients. The cabin is our primary testing facility. But we hired contractors. Peter sputtered. We bought furniture. Yes, you did. Without asking me. Tell me, did you mention to those contractors that you were planning to renovate a classified security facility? The color drained from their faces. Those renovation plans you've been sharing in the group chat. I continued. They've been flagged by multiple security agencies. Attempting to modify a restricted facility without authorization is problematic. As if on cue, two black SUVs appeared on the road behind them. The Defense Department team was arriving early. Mr. Davidson, a voice crackled through my security system. This is Colonel Matthews. We're here for the demonstration. Should we be concerned about the civilians at the gate? I pressed the intercom. No concern, Colonel. Just a family misunderstanding. They were just leaving. My relatives stood frozen as the military vehicles pulled up behind them.
Nathan, Peter's voice was small now.
What exactly do you do? I run a multi-billion-dollar security technology company. I replied. But you never asked. You just assumed I was failing because I didn't follow Dad into real estate. Those contractors, Amanda began, have been contacted and informed that they were hired under false pretenses to modify a restricted facility. They were quite understanding once the FBI explained the situation. The FBI, Aunt Susan whispered. Standard procedure for attempted unauthorized access to secure facilities. I explained. Don't worry. I've assured them this was just a misunderstanding. No charges will be filed. Through the cameras, I watched them process the magnitude of what they'd almost done. Their faces cycled through shock, embarrassment, and dawning horror. The moving truck, Peter started, should head back now, I suggested. And you should all go home. We have a classified demonstration in 20 minutes. And this road will be closed to civilian traffic. But we sold our summer house, Amanda protested. We took the kids out of camp. Yes, I agreed. You did all that without asking me if you could have my property. Perhaps this is a good lesson in not making assumptions. The military vehicles were parking now. Uniformed personnel emerging to secure the area. Go home, I said firmly. We can discuss this later, after the demonstration, after you've had time to think about what you almost did. I watched them pile back into their vehicles, the moving truck turning awkwardly on the narrow mountain road. As they drove away, Colonel Matthews approached the gate. Interesting security test, he commented as I let him in. Using civilian relatives to probe for weaknesses. I smiled. Something like that. Shall we begin the demonstration? The fallout from my family's failed cabin takeover was immediate and dramatic. While I conducted the Defense Department demonstration, showing off our latest breakthrough in perimeter security systems, my phone buzzed constantly with messages from various family members. I ignored them all until that evening after Colonel Matthews and his team had left with signed contracts worth more than my relatives' combined net worth. Finally, I opened the family group chat. Nathan, we need to talk. Peter had written, followed by 24 increasingly desperate messages. I set up a video conference call. Within minutes, their faces populated my screen. Peter looking shell-shocked. Amanda near tears, and Aunt Susan trying to maintain her usual commanding presence despite her obvious discomfort. Let's address what happened today. I began calmly, sitting in my cabin's true form. A state-of-the-art command center with multiple screens showing security feeds and system diagnostics. Why didn't you tell us? Amanda burst out. All these years we thought. You thought what? I interrupted. That I was failing, that I needed your help, that my property was just sitting around waiting for you to claim it. We were trying to help, Aunt Susan insisted, though her voice lacked its usual certainty. No, I corrected her. You were trying to take something that wasn't yours. Without asking, without even bothering to find out what I actually do for a living. Peter cleared his throat. About those contractors. Already handled. I cut in. My legal team contacted them. They've signed non-disclosure agreements and been compensated for their time. Consider yourselves lucky they didn't start work. Unauthorized modifications to a secure facility would have triggered automatic federal notifications. Federal. Amanda's voice trembled. Nathan, just how serious is your work? I pressed a button, bringing up a holographic display of Mountain Peak's latest security system. What you see behind me is worth about $400 million in development costs. We have contracts with 12 governments, and most of the Fortune 500 companies. That empty cabin you tried to renovate. It's the testing ground for technology that protects presidents and prime ministers. Their faces showed the slow realization of what they'd almost done. The furniture we ordered, Aunt Susan began, is being returned. I finished. I've arranged it, along with canceling all the contractors and service providers you hired without authorization. The costs will be deducted from your refunds. But where are we supposed to go for the summer? Amanda asked. We sold our vacation house. You sold your house before confirming you had somewhere else to go. I asked, letting my disappointment show. That seems unwise. Peter leaned forward. Look, Nathan, we clearly made some mistakes. Mistakes? I pulled up their renovation plans on another screen. You were planning to tear out military-grade security systems because they looked outdated. You were going to convert a classified testing lab into a game room. Do you understand what could have happened if you'd actually started those renovations? The silence was heavy with realization. But since you asked about summer plans, I continued, softening my tone slightly, I might have a solution, one that could help you understand what real property development looks like. Their expressions shifted from shame to cautious interest. Mountain Peak owns a resort development down in the valley, I explained. We use it to house our employees and visiting clients. There are some units available. At market rate, of course. But more importantly, there might be opportunities there. Opportunities? Peter asked. The resort needs a new property manager. Someone who understands real estate but is willing to learn about security. Someone who can handle both civilian guests and classified client meetings. Interested, Peter? My cousin sat up straighter. You trust me with that? After today, trust is earned, I replied. You'd start at entry level, learning our systems, our protocols, no special treatment. But if you're serious about property management, this would be real experience with modern security integration. What about us? Amanda asked quietly. The resort runs educational programs for employees' families. Your kids could attend those instead of camp. And we need someone to coordinate resident services. If you're willing to learn, actually learn, about what we do, Aunt Susan spoke up. I sense a pattern here. You're offering us a chance to be part of something rather than just take it over. Exactly, I nodded. Mountain Peak isn't just about security systems. We're building communities that balance privacy, security, and lifestyle. But it only works if people respect the boundaries. I pulled up images of the resort. A beautiful complex nestled in the valley below my cabin. Modern buildings blended with the landscape, hiding sophisticated security measures behind elegant design. You have 24 hours to decide, I continued. The positions are real jobs with real responsibilities. No shortcuts, no special treatment, and absolutely no unauthorized renovations. Peter laughed weakly at that last part. I think we've learned our lesson about renovations. Have you? I asked seriously. Because this isn't just about property, it's about respect, understanding, asking before taking. Those military officers today, Amanda said slowly, they looked at you differently than we ever have. Like you were competent, I suggested. Successful. Amazing what you notice when you actually pay attention. The call fell quiet as they processed everything. Finally, Aunt Susan spoke up. We've been awful, haven't we? All these years, making assumptions, never asking. Yes, I agreed simply. You have. But tomorrow's a new day. The resort positions are open if you want them. Real work, real learning, real respect. After the call ended, I walked through my cabin, my facility, checking systems and reviewing data from the day's demonstration. The perimeter sensors tracked local wildlife. The advanced cameras monitored every approach. And somewhere in the valley below, my family was finally beginning to understand what I'd built while they weren't paying attention. My phone buzzed with a message from Peter. About those security systems I called outdated. Any chance I could learn how they actually work? Perhaps there was hope for them after all. 3 months after the failed cabin takeover, I stood in the resort's control center watching my family's transformation unfold through a wall of monitors. The change had been remarkable and unexpected. Peter, who once dismissed my outdated security systems, was now immersed in learning their intricacies. I watched on the screens as he conducted a security tour for potential clients, explaining the subtle integration of safety measures into the resort's design. "See how the landscaping creates natural barriers," he was saying. "Those decorative boulders, they're actually vehicle deterrents disguised as art. The water features, part of our fire suppression system." His audience, executives from a major tech company, nodded appreciatively. Peter had gone from planning unauthorized renovations to becoming one of our most effective security consultants. "Sir?" Thomas appeared at my side. "The quarterly reports are ready. You'll want to see this." I reviewed the numbers: resort occupancy up 40%, client satisfaction at record levels, and security protocol compliance at 100%. But the most interesting statistics were about my family. Amanda had transformed the resident services department. Her experience as a former event planner, combined with her new understanding of security protocols, had created something unique. She developed a program that balanced luxury hospitality with high-level security, making our high-profile clients feel both safe and pampered. I pulled up the footage from her latest event, a seamless blend of five-star service and cutting-edge protection. The clients never saw the security measures, but every server, every valet, every housekeeper was fully trained in protocols. "Nathan?" Amanda's voice came through the intercom. "We have a situation." I switched to her camera feed. She was standing in the resort's main lobby, facing a familiar scene: relatives trying to bypass security. "Cousin David and his family just showed up," she reported. "They're demanding access to the premium suites," said. "Since we're family." I watched with pride as Amanda handled it professionally. "I'm sorry, but all guests must go through proper security screening and booking procedures. Family or not, protocols exist for everyone's safety." The same words I'd used with her 3 months ago. On another screen, Aunt Susan was conducting a training session for new staff. Her natural authority, once used to orchestrate family takeovers, now enforced security compliance. "Every access card, every door code, every security camera has a purpose," she was explaining. "We protect people who protect nations. There are no exceptions, no shortcuts, no special favors, not even for family." I smiled at that last part. The lesson had been well learned. My phone buzzed with a message from Peter. "You need to see this." Conference room A. I headed down, passing through multiple subtle security checkpoints. The resort's guests never noticed them, but every movement was monitored, every access point secured. Peter was waiting with blueprints spread across the table. "I've been thinking about the North Wing expansion," he said without preamble. "If we adjust the angle of the building, we can create natural surveillance points while maintaining the views." I examined his plans. 3 months ago he'd wanted to tear out security systems. Now he was designing them. "Look here," he pointed to a detailed section. "By integrating the security features during construction, we can hide them completely. The guests get their luxury, we get our security, and nobody has to compromise." "Like a certain cabin on a mountain?" I asked with a slight smile. He had the grace to look embarrassed. "I still can't believe we were going to renovate a classified facility into a summer home." Speaking of which, I pulled up the cabin's security feed on my tablet. "Want to see what you almost destroyed?" Peter's eyes widened as I showed him the cabin's true capabilities. The advanced testing labs, the prototype systems, the command center that monitored security for facilities around the world. "All this," he whispered. "And we thought it was just sitting empty." "Sometimes," I said, "the most secure things don't look secure at all." A notification popped up. Amanda's children were in their after-school program, learning about cybersecurity through games designed by our tech team. They'd gone from planning to tear up the cabin to understanding why protection mattered. "We have a situation." Thomas's voice came through my earpiece. "Potential breach at the East Gate." I pulled up the feeds, another relative, this time a distant cousin, trying to leverage family connections for access. Want to handle it? I asked Peter. He straightened his security badge. Family or not, protocols exist for a reason. As I watched him professionally, but firmly turn away our entitled relative, I realized something. The cabin incident hadn't just taught my family about security, it had taught them about boundaries, respect, and the value of earning things rather than taking them. Aunt Susan joined us in the conference room. Monthly security review is ready, she reported. Compliance is up, incidents are down, and the new training program is showing excellent results. Different from planning unauthorized renovations? I asked. She smiled wryly. Amazing what you learn when you actually ask questions instead of making assumptions. The resort's success had exceeded all expectations. My family, once intent on taking over my property, had become instrumental in protecting other people's security. They'd learned that real value isn't in possession, but in protection, not in owning something, but in understanding it. As night fell over the valley, I stood at the resort's observation point, looking up at my cabin on the mountain. Its lights blinked secretly, monitoring, protecting, securing, just as it had when my family thought it was empty. Peter joined me, his security tablet showing green across all sectors. You know, he said thoughtfully, we never thanked you. For what? For stopping us from destroying something important. For showing us there's more to security than locks and cameras. For giving us a chance to learn instead of just taking. I nodded toward the cabin. Sometimes the best security is invisible. And sometimes the best lessons come from failed takeover attempts. 1 year after the failed cabin takeover, I stood in the resort's grand ballroom, watching my family conduct our biggest event yet, the International Security Technology Summit. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Peter, now our head of integrated security design, was presenting our latest innovations to a room full of global security experts. His presentation wasn't about taking over properties, it was about protecting them. The key to modern security, he explained to the assembled crowd, is making it invisible yet impenetrable. Like a mountain cabin that looks abandoned but houses millions in classified technology. He caught my eye and smiled, drawing knowing chuckles from those who'd heard the story. Amanda moved through the crowd with practiced ease, coordinating her security-trained staff while making everything look effortless. The world's top security professionals were being served by people who could spot a threat as easily as they could recommend a wine pairing. 6 months of specialized training for every staff member, she told an impressed client. Because true security isn't just about systems, it's about people. Aunt Susan supervised from her command center, monitoring every aspect of the event through advanced security feeds. The woman who once planned to redecorate my classified facility now ran one of the most sophisticated security operations in the private sector. All sectors secure, she reported through our encrypted channel. And David's family just tried the East Gate again. They've been redirected, firmly. I checked my watch, almost time for the main announcement. The cabin's security feeds showed multiple military vehicles approaching, right on schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the crowd. A year ago, my family thought they were going to turn a classified facility into a summer home. Today, they're helping us unveil the next generation of integrated security technology. The screens lit up with live feeds from the cabin, showing the military convoy arriving for the first demonstration of our new system. Peter had helped design it. Amanda had coordinated the logistics. Aunt Susan had overseen the protocols. Mountain Peak security isn't just about technology, I continued. It's about understanding that true security comes from respect, boundaries, and proper protocols. Sometimes the best teachers are those who once tried to break in. My family members exchanged knowing looks. They'd come so far from that day they'd driven up the mountain, with a moving truck and renovation plans. The demonstration was a success. The contracts signed that day would fund our operations for years. But the real achievement was watching my family work the room afterward, speaking knowledgeably about security protocols they'd once planned to tear out. Later that night, we gathered in my cabin's command center, the same room they'd planned to turn into a game room. Peter was reviewing design specs for our next facility. Amanda was finalizing protocols for an upcoming diplomatic event. Aunt Susan was updating our training programs. Remember when we thought this place was just sitting empty? Amanda mused, looking around at the advanced technology surrounding us. Remember when we hired contractors to modernize it? Peter added, shaking his head at their past presumption. Aunt Susan looked up from her security feeds. Remember when we thought Nathan was failing because he left real estate for computers? I smiled, watching the perimeter sensors track another mountain lion, passing safely through our grounds. Sometimes the best success stories start with failure. Speaking of stories, Peter said, pulling up a familiar image on his tablet. Remember this? It was their old renovation plans for the cabin. The game room, the modern kitchen, the home theater where a classified lab should have been. Hard to believe we ever thought we could just take over someone's property, Amanda remarked. Harder to believe we thought those security systems were outdated, Peter added. Hardest to believe we never just asked what Nathan actually did, Aunt Susan finished. The cabin's lights blinked steadily, monitoring the mountain as they had for years. But now my family understood what those lights meant. They'd learned that true value isn't in what you can take, but in what you can protect. Next week's training session is fully booked, Aunt Susan reported. Turns out our family takeover turned security expertise's story is quite popular in the industry. Who would have thought, I mused, that your greatest qualification would be failing to take over my cabin? They laughed, the comfortable laughter of people who had learned their lesson well, and found their true calling in the process. As the night deepened, and the security systems hummed around us, I watched my family work. They'd come to the mountain looking to take something. Instead, they'd found something far more valuable: purpose, understanding, and the satisfaction of protecting, rather than possessing. The cabin stood secure, as it always had, but now it wasn't just my secret, it was our legacy. A legacy built not on taking, but on protecting. Not on possession, but on respect. And somewhere in the valley below, a moving truck that once carried renovation supplies now transported security equipment, its drivers fully vetted, and its protocols strictly followed. Sometimes the best endings come from the worst beginnings, and sometimes an empty cabin isn't empty at all. End of story.